So yeah, today was an interesting day. I did some more paperwork for court, of course. Had to make a list of separate property and community property. And man, I messed up. I was supposed to work today, and I misread my schedule. My start time and end time got flipped. I thought I read 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the evening. But what the schedule actually said was 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I had the early shift today and I messed up. I don't know. Might get fired because I mean, technically speaking, that was a no call, no show. But if I don't get fired, okay. If I do get fired, okay. I've got another job. I just haven't got my first paycheck from them yet, which should be tomorrow. Then I don't know what to expect. If it looks good enough, I'll probably go ahead and quit the job, quit Family Dollar, and just go work on motorcycles. We'll see. Yeah, so speaking of motorcycles, another thing I messed up. Today's been a difficult day. So I've been dealing with this thing on my bike. It's been getting progressively worse. I've been dealing with it for, I don't know, about 2 or 3 years, where I'll go into a curve, usually a left curve, and the front tire will start wobbling. It doesn't do it when I'm going straight down the road, only when I go into a left curve. Sometimes when I go into a right curve, but usually just left. And I've already changed the fork oil. Still need to change the tires and the tubes because that can affect it. I adjusted the steering bearings, and there was a lot of recoil in the risers because I had these ridiculously tall risers on the bike because I only had 12-inch bars, and I wanted my fists in front of me because it really does make the ride more comfortable. It makes you sit more upright because the bars, if your hands are below your shoulders, it kind of encourages slouching. Anyway, and the risers, because the bars were so short, and yes, 12 inches is kind of short when it comes to bars. Get your minds out of the gutter. Anyway, and so I had 8-inch risers, straight risers, and they just didn't quite fit right, and so I get a lot of recoil in the bars from that. That and Honda, the top clamp on Honda's Triple Trees is where the forks go. They always have these rubber bushings in them, unless they're like the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie doesn't have that, and I want to say the VTX 1800 doesn't have that. Big bike, which I'm hoping to get one. Anyway, so they don't have to worry about that, but tall risers and rubber bushings don't really mix very well because there's too much give. And then when it does give, it springs back, and then that's how you get the wobble, because then you got this feedback in the handlebars. Because your arm isn't going to give as easily as those bushings are. So I was trying to work to the thing I messed up on. I was trying to work on it to kind of take a lot of that out of the bars so I could have a more stable bike through the curves. And I was having trouble with one of the bolts. I was trying to get it in and it broke. Didn't even bottom out yet. So frustrating. So I had to get ready to go to work, which I thought I did anyway. Didn't realize that I'd messed up so bad. And so I just made it work. I was tightening down the last riser bolt, and my Allen wrench snapped. inside the bolt. So that whole thing was a headache. Then, of course, I'd get to work and find out that I wasn't early, I was late. So that's been an interesting day. And I keep seeing groups that are suggested for me, because, you know, on Facebook you get group suggestions based on what your friends like or are a part of. And I got one that my wife is in, soon to be ex-wife, called Relationship Quotes. I saw her share a whole lot of those whenever we were still together. And they were, you know, you do this, you do that, you should do this, and this is how the relationship's supposed to go. And she tried to use a whole lot of those to manipulate me into doing things and to letting things go, more or less. Not pursuing things that were hurting me. And the funny thing is a lot of the ones that she shared were also applied. They also applied to her, but she made no positive changes during our relationship, except for, I have to say this, except for certain sexual acts. And it was nice and everything while it lasted. And I don't know if she was doing it because she thought it'd make the relationship better, or if she was doing it because she thought it would make me quieter. But I wanted more than just sex. And yeah, obviously I wanted that. I can't really speak for all men, but for me it really is more than just sex. It is acceptance, it's closeness, whatever. And oddly enough, it actually took me a long time to realize that was why I wanted it. But the things that she never changed were the things that I needed her to change. And one of those things was ignoring me when I needed her, or pushing me away when I needed affection, which is more than just sex. And in the end, she just never satisfied with what I did, so she didn't bother being satisfied, or didn't bother trying to satisfy me. After I cheated on her and she discovered it, we got really active. Well, I say really active. That was in comparison to before. And then we didn't. Started making more demands of me, demanding that I change things that were part of me. And I don't just mean bad behaviors. Because bad behaviors, I don't have a problem in the world changing bad behaviors. If I'm doing something wrong, then I want to stop it. But she wanted me to change hobbies. She wanted me to work more and enjoy less. And of course, she's not going to admit that, but whenever you tell somebody that anything that's not work is wrong, and I say it that way as sort of a, she didn't say it in those words, but if I played video games, she had a problem. If I drew pictures, she had a problem. If I played music, she had a problem. And I tried to include her in a lot of the things that I did, but she just wasn't interested. In the end, all the things that she said she loved about me in the beginning are the things that she ended up hating. Even to the point of telling me that she believes that drawing, making music, writing, all the hobbies that I had were morally wrong. Every once in a while, I think about the things that I did and think, well, perhaps she's justified. Perhaps I'm misreading the whole thing and she really did care, she really did love me, and I'm just being ridiculous. That thought pattern actually drove me to try and reconcile, win her back, basically. Man, what a mistake that was. Like I said in the past, like I said in previous videos, every attempt at civility was met with hostility. But while I'm thinking about those things, and I start to get this panic attack, and it is a panic attack, where it feels like my heart is trying to seize up, and my breathing starts getting weird, and I actually start getting a little lightheaded. I remember the fight that I had through the relationship. Again, I did do things wrong. I did things that I admit were abusive. I did yell a lot. There were a few times that I actually punched the wall. Very few, but they happened. I would never hit her. There was one time, I have to admit, I got close. I really don't want to revisit that. But I stopped myself. I was in a really bad place. I had had a few drinks. Wasn't really drunk or even tipsy. I just had a light buzz. That was it. I was trying to get on my bike to get away from her because every time I told her that something she was doing hurt me, she just turned it around and started accusing me of things and blaming her behavior on me, things like that. I'm sorry. If you're neglecting your husband, if you're rejecting your husband, if you are making excuses to do those things, to act like your husband is not important to you, especially if they're things that don't even happen anymore. Maybe if they did it one time, it's understandable if they're still happening, but not if they're not happening anymore. But if I tell her that something she's doing is hurting me, and she just tells me basically, it's my fault that it's hurting. It's my fault she's doing it. That is abuse. It's maddening. Whenever you deny, whenever you gaslight, whenever you deflect, you blame shift, whenever you do absolutely everything except take accountability, especially if you turn it all back on the person that's telling you you're hurting them, that's abuse. But anyway, it was another one of those nights. I'd already had a few because I couldn't stand where I was emotionally. Probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 shots of rum, I think it was. Just getting ready to get on my bike. Started it to warm it up. While I was gearing up, she grabbed my keys. And it's in the night. It's at night. It's dark outside. She turned the bike off, pulled the keys out, threw them across the yard. was kind of a turning point for me. That was the first moment my eyes were open to how far gone everything really was. You know, there are going to be a lot of people who agree with her. And honestly, I can understand, because I cheated, and for a lot of people, that is justification for denying your spouse access to you both physically and emotionally. See, the problem is that act, the rejection, the abandonment outright, the neglect, emotional and physical, those were happening before I cheated on her. While I dedicated myself to her fully, even to the point of pushing friends away and neglecting myself. And the thing is, I have no problem in the world neglecting myself. I'll do that for someone who is willing to pick up that slack. This isn't me trying to say that my wife should have tried to save me. That's not the point. No. When you're in a relationship, it's supposed to be, I give you as much of me as I can. And it's supposed to be that way for both sides of it. But whenever you're in a position where in your relationship it's, well, I will give you everything of me that I have. But the other person is, you owe me everything you have. There's no reciprocation. A relationship needs reciprocation. I am not faulting her for having a problem with the fact I cheated. I have a problem with the fact I cheated. I really do. I have a lot of regrets in my life. I really wish I could just go back in time and fix it all. But it just doesn't happen that way. But before she found out what I did to my cousin when I was 14, before I ever cheated on her, she was treating me this way. So the excuse that it's because I cheated on her, it's not relevant. She probably saw that as the perfect reason. But, well, I went off on a tangent again. Alright, so why don't I tell on myself some more? At this point, I'd rather do that. The more I talk about her, the more it bothers me, because she was my wife. I planned my whole life with her. I expected to die lying next to her. Anyway, that didn't happen. So, telling myself some more. Oh, I think whenever somebody freely admits wrongdoing, it's healthy for them. I mean, it may may bring about some very unwanted consequences, because, as I've discovered, some people just aren't forgiving of that sort of thing. And like I said, I did a lot of things wrong in my past. Oh, that's where I ended up. I should have gone the other way. Anyway, I did a lot of things wrong in my past. And because of some of those things that I did, there are a lot of people who probably want me dead now. Oh well. Not like I planned to be alive this long anyway. So, I had this really bad, well, obviously because of what I did when I was 14, but I had this really bad, toxic, dreadful sexual curiosity. So when I was 2, I guess, somewhere around there, I was made to watch basically what I did to my cousin when I was 14, I got to watch that happen to someone else close to me when I was 2 years old. Made to watch it. My brother was too. And that kind of reinforced this sexual curiosity, which, I mean, sexual curiosity exists anyway, but it becomes unhealthy at a certain point. And I kind of pole vaulted into that unhealthy area. And I really wish I had counseling when I was younger. I don't even know that counseling for that existed then. I mean, it might have, but we were poor. We couldn't get insurance for that sort of thing. Yeah, back in the 90s, I believe this is right, but back in the 90s, you had to be making a certain amount of money to qualify for Medicaid. And you couldn't make over a certain amount. We didn't have Medicaid. It was really weird. Food stamps was kind of the same way back then. That's actually why I never went to preschool, because my parents didn't make enough for preschool. And my aunt and uncle, not the same aunt and uncle, but my aunt and uncle, they wanted to put one of their kids into preschool. They were told they make too much. The 90s were kind of weird when it came to that sort of thing. I don't know. Anyway, back to the counseling bed. If it had been available to me, I really wish I could have gone to counseling for that sort of thing. It did negatively affect relationships. I didn't rape, which I don't even know if that word can be said on the YouTube, which I've already done it. I guess whatever. I didn't do that to my first girlfriend. Well, first, I had to say legitimate. She wasn't technically my first girlfriend, but that's a whole other story. I won't use her name, but kind of, well, I might as well use the word, I molested her. It wasn't quite like what I did before with my cousin, but I don't know. I had that sexual curiosity, and it was amplified by my experience whenever I was 2, to a point of unhealthy curiosity, and the rejection from the opposite gender throughout my youth kind of exacerbated all of that. No, this isn't justification. It's not an excuse. Just an explanation. Hopefully this explanation will help people understand things that they're doing. Because, as I found out, most toxic behaviors come from bad experiences when you're younger. I mean, that's how borderline personality and narcissistic personality are created. You have that consistent, prolonged exposure to negative, traumatic experiences, and your brain breaks. Sad thing is, I actually thought I had a healthy mind. The signs were there that I didn't, but I was a stupid boy. What did I know? And of course, I don't mean that facetiously. I genuinely mean I was a child, and I was too stupid to know that those behaviors were red flags and something was wrong, even though I knew the behaviors themselves were wrong. And yes, when I did that to my first official girlfriend, that's a better word, official. And with my first official girlfriend, I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. I did it to one other girlfriend. I went a little bit further with her. But yeah, I mean, I've done bad things. I've done toxic things. I've gaslighted. I don't know. It's kind of hard to know which one is supposed to be with a word like that. Whatever. Anyway, I've lied. I've deflected. I mean, I've done all of that toxic stuff. Eventually, I got to a point of mental and emotional maturity where I realized that not only are those behaviors toxic, but they're outright destructive. The consequences had never actually occurred to me. And I could blame this condition or that condition, but in the end, it doesn't matter. It was bad and wrong. And something my soon-to-be ex-wife made a connection with was me talking about what's right and wrong while having things like that in my background. And really, the connection was just never made in my mind. Well, there's no excuse for it. I did not make that connection. And it would seem like I should. Like, how in the world did you not make that connection knowing it was wrong, and while you're decrying these behaviors? And much of those behaviors that I did decry were behaviors I exhibited, or had exhibited at one time, if not still. I I will say this, that the judge that presides over our divorce watches any of my YouTube, this is probably going to look really bad for me. But I made a Facebook post kind of telling on myself where I basically said that I have lied. I've seen the consequences of lying. I was foolish for lying. And so because lying is so damaging, toxic, and foolish, I keep doing the whole hand thing. Keep forgetting there's a phone in my hand. Anyway, because of those reasons, I just don't want to lie anymore. And more than that, forget lying. We should be going beyond lying. Stop lying. Everyone, just stop lying. But more than that, confess. So I don't have to tell everybody these things that I'm telling them. I don't have to tell them myself. I'm doing it anyway. Because I have a whole lot of lying to make up for. And really the things I lied about most, and things I really, just about the only things I lied about were sexual things. Yeah. And honestly, truth be told, right after I did what I did to my cousin, I molested another cousin. That's a chapter in my life that I really wish didn't exist. Not because I'm afraid somebody's going to come around the corner and shoot me or something like that, but because now, at this point in my life, looking back on how messed up those times were, how messed up I was, I abhor that behavior. There's nothing I can do about it except just don't do it ever again, which I'd already settled on that. Those are things that I had actually gotten rid of before the divorce. This isn't something that's new. It's just, I just got rid of it. It's not there anymore. I don't have the desire to do that anymore. I got to the point before our divorce and after I was caught cheating, after I looked at my behavior and said, wow, you're an idiot, let's fix this. I made the conscious choice. Yes, I still want sex. Yes, I still want pleasure. Yes, I still want fulfillment, tenderness, closeness. But I wanted my wife. And she was the only one I wanted at that point. I fantasized about intimacy with her of all kinds. Sitting on the couch with her laying against me, cuddling in bed, sex. And I mean various positions and actions, however you want to say it, activities. But I wanted her hugs, her kisses, and yes, even before I cheated on her, those were still rare. No, it was not because I cheated on her. That was just a convenient reason at that point. But something else I also wanted, something I needed, was for her to want me. For her to look at me and say, that is my husband. I should give him as much as I expect. And in the end, that is what bothered me the most, was an expectation that went one way. She expected things from me that she wasn't willing to give. Thought about that a lot. In fact, for 2 years, that was all we fought about. She expected me to give to her to work, and I did. I actually did work until we quit our job for the kids. We both worked at the same place. And then I was a stay-at-home dad, and she found a job because she was able to make more than me easily. Even now, she still makes more than me. And hey, she makes more than me now than I've ever made in my life. There's just no way for me to compete with her ability to earn money. But she wanted me to make money and take care of the kids and fix the house and the car and Tahoe and never need anything from her. And at that point, all I wanted was her. I'd have been happy living in the woods in a tent so long as I had my wife and kids. Whatever. So when I talk about her being toxic, manipulative, backstabbing, conniving, false, that is not me saying that I'm innocent. Because I've done that too. She asked me one time after a visit with that side of the family, why don't they like you? And I lied. I said, I don't know. I definitely knew. I felt so ashamed and guilty, and knowing that as soon as I told her, she'd leave. I lied. See, toxic behaviors exist. Everybody has toxic behaviors. I don't care how healed you are. Everyone has toxic behaviors. But the key, the important thing, is to be less toxic tomorrow than you are now. And to be less toxic now than you were yesterday. Whoop. That stick decided to follow me. So yeah, be less toxic today than you were yesterday. Be less toxic tomorrow than you are today. And that should be your guiding light, as it were. I mean, I discovered this recently, even if I had never done anything wrong or toxic, before and during the relationship, the whole relationship was built on a lie anyway. So it was doomed from the start. Nothing that starts with a lie is going to end well. I don't care how good it is in between. And for those of you who are trying to figure it out, if you have to beg for the bare minimum, you're better off alone. She would like to tell people that I gave her the bare minimum. The only thing bare minimum I actually gave her was money. Because for some reason I've always had trouble earning money, and I don't really know why. People, her side of the family like to try and convince me that was because I was lazy. And I lost track of the jobs that I had. All except for 2 of them. Each job paid me more than the last one. I went into jobs that I never wanted to do. I never wanted to be in food service. Never wanted to work at a prison. I had some nice jobs though, that I never would have chosen for myself before that. But I did jobs that hurt me. I did jobs that almost killed me. I worked several jobs at once. Not just 2. I worked 3 jobs at once at one particular time, 2 of them full time. And yes, it almost killed me because I would regularly go a week without sleep, and at one point it was 2 weeks. And oddly enough, I got ridiculed for that because they didn't believe that what I was saying was true. She accused me of never having worked during our relationship. That's not true. Anyway, I gave her more than the bare minimum. I just didn't have a lot of money for it to matter. Ultimately, what I wanted was for us to be able to be financially free. I didn't chase down a whole lot of business adventures or endeavors, but I did pursue a couple, and obviously they didn't pan out. But that wasn't what I put all of my focus on. And there really only one reason that I quit most of the jobs that I did quit. Because they were taking me away from my family. Which unfortunately happened a lot. By the end of our relationship, my mind was so messed up I couldn't think straight. Focusing was nearly impossible. Doing work took me twice as long. My body wouldn't even work right. My physical strength was extremely inconsistent. I couldn't control my hands. I'd be holding on to something and it just randomly open. And I really thought that it was just me getting lazy. So I wasn't holding on to whatever it was well enough. But it has been getting progressively better since the separation. I really wanted our relationship to work out. But all of that to say that every time I start to think I'm being unreasonable, I remember what I went through. And it brings me back to reality. What she's doing right now by itself is enough to justify me never, ever going back to her. I'd understand if I were still exhibiting those behaviors, but I'm not. Those are all things that are gone. And what's still here I'm going to counseling to repair the random temper, the inability to cope with sudden changes and things like that, my anxiety, the panic attacks, a bunch of stuff more than I can recount here. She's keeping my kids from me, or doing her best to. I see them once a week. I used to see them every day. She sees them every day. She doesn't do anything more with them than I did with them. I miss my kids. It's not the past that's important. It's the capacity for change. So the past only matters when it's no longer in the past. Or when it's not in the past, still rather. But if somebody has put in the work to fix themselves, continuing to hold those things against them that no longer exist, by itself is toxic.